everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this last talk today. And we're ending with a great session with the NFT protocol team. We have Joseph Fiscella and John Storey. Sorry if I'm sabotaging your name with my French accent. And yeah, I mean, everyone, if you want to ask any question, please feel free to ask in the chat here on Zoom or in the YouTube channel. And you will be able to find any further conversation in the sponsor channel on Discord if you still have questions after this 1 hour with the team. I let you take it over.
Thanks. Hi, hope everyone can hear me just okay. I'm Joseph from NFT Protocol. I'm here with John, my colleague, and we are developing a few products on top of NFTs. Our website is nft.org. John's going to be walking through it in a little bit on a screen share, but I just wanted to give a little background on myself. I'll let John do his intro, and then we'll do a little bit of intro on nft.org. So I've been in the space since about 2012, was mining Bitcoins and Litecoins with solar power energy. Got really involved in the development community back in the day on Bitcoin Talk. Helped out with some altcoins and programming in the Bitcoin space. I've been a part of the New York City Bitcoin community since the very, very beginning, which is actually, well, back in the day, it was the biggest meetup group in the world when meetup groups were still possible. And that's just kind of like the beginning of the story. I've been working in the space since then, just full time, and came across Block Party, which was originally a NFT for ticketing company. And Block Party kind of focused more directly on NFTs for art and began creating a marketplace for NFTs early last year. And now NFTs are much larger, like the market's much bigger, and we're able to make something like a DEX on top of an EVM chain, which we're going to be using Ethereum, and we're going to expand to Binance, probably the Huobi Eco chain, Phantom, as well as other chains that are not EVM based, like Flow and Cosmos. So we have a lot going on. I'm not going to go too deep into details. I'll let John introduce himself, and then we take it from there.
Sweet, thank you. Hi guys, yeah, kind of getting into the space. I first got into it from a friend in 2013, but didn't really start coding in it until about 2016 when I learned about Ethereum and got really interested in the smart contracts and this idea of code as law and a lot of the work around like organizing groups of people and the ideas around DAOs really kind of brought me into the space. And at that time, I was a web developer working just at an e-commerce sort of a platform and messaged a whole bunch of people in the space and found my way working with Consensus back in the day, working on a few different products for accounting and then for like tokenizing real estate stuff. And anyways, I just been working in the space and yeah, I took a little break, a little personal break a while ago and wanted to get back in and was really intrigued by, like Joseph was talking about, the work that Block Party been doing, their vision with nft.org and the protocol and like, yeah, kind of basically everything he's been talking about, the expanding to other chains and spreading just a decentralized marketplace essentially for these NFTs. It's really it aligns very well with my motivations in the space. So very grateful and excited to be working on these tools and these products.
Awesome, thanks, John. Actually, I think your screen is set up for screen sharing, so maybe we can go through the nft.org website and take a look at some of the products that we're building.
Okay. Yeah, would that be?
Sorry, my computer is not set up for screen sharing right now. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Do you want me? Will you just direct me where you would like me to go to, and I can?
Yeah, let's do it that way. That seems fine. Perfect. Cool. So this is our site, nft.org, and let's go to docs. Check out some of the stuff we've got going on. So basically, I'm not going to read anything off, but what I'd like to describe here is the fact that we have voting, we have a swap platform that's launching soon, and we have an index and staking kind of program. So the first thing that I'd like to talk about is actually the voting platform. So if you're familiar with snapshot.page, this is a off-chain voting mechanism that everyone uses in the crypto space, kind of in line with John was talking about earlier, where you have a snapshot of all token holders and they can vote on specific initiatives that they want the development team to work on. And a lot of these initiatives are proposed by community members and then voted on by hundreds of different people who own NFT protocol tokens. And the reason for this is that we want the network to be completely decentralized. And even though Block Party is the lead developer and the issuer of the NFT protocol token, eventually the treasury and everything inside the treasury and all of the decision making should be completely decentralized in a way that the protocol perpetuates itself and lives on as an NFT enhancement protocol on top of EVM and other blockchain chains. So one way to do that, and pretty much the best way to do that, is to organize decision making into some sort of voting mechanism where by owning a certain amount of tokens, it gives you a certain amount of votes. You can even stake your tokens to have a larger percentage of a vote or to like boost your voting power. Although that isn't live yet on our protocol, it's something that other decentralized protocols like Curve are using. We think that that's extremely important. So as far as like what NFT protocol is, this is really the base layer of what we're trying to do. We're trying to create something that perpetuates itself, is a true protocol in the way that it just lives on as a piece of tech and doesn't have a centralized point of failure, such that everything is completely decentralized. All the decision making is decentralized, and that's really why NFTs themselves are valuable, because you have a thing that represents a single item or like a group of items that isn't fungible, but it's still tradable as an ERC20 or like a Bitcoin is tradable. And you have all the decentralized properties of that, permissionless trade and the security that comes with the Ether, whatever blockchain it's on. So in line with those philosophies, we've built NFT protocol to live on as something like a thing that can exist alongside NFTs and really make sure that they perpetuate the same use cases and the same philosophy that the ERC 721 standard was released with. So we've done a number of proposals before. Actually, the original staking contract was written based on a community proposal. So this is just one way that we're making the community more involved in NFT protocol, but also making sure that there's no central point of failure, because NFTs themselves are like owned on the chain. So we want to keep in line with that. So that's our voting process and how we plan to be decentralized. If you could please go back to, let's talk a little bit about our DEX. So one of the things that we want to do with NFT protocol is create a fully featured DEX. And DEXs exist like OpenSea and Rarible. Technically, you can, they're Web3 apps. You can log in. They're decentralized in the way that you can trade with them, and they use the EVM, they use the Ethereum network to actually facilitate those trades. But what we want to do is create something that's more philosophically aligned with how a Web3 application for NFTs and NFT trades should look. And what I mean by look is not only how the experience feels when you're using it as a user, but how the architecture is created such that there's no central point of failure and that there isn't any central control over the list of NFTs that you see or the trades that happen. So one of the really, really easy wins that we've added and no one has really been looking at is OTC trading. If you're part of the NFT community, you might see like 10 to 15 NFT channels on your Telegram pop up every day with thousands of different messages. And these are, for the most part, people trading collectibles and trading art and like discovering content that they like to consume that's being produced as NFTs. And this is just increasing. So one of the things that we're doing is facilitating these OTC trades. If you look at a lot of those Telegram channels, people will buy an NFT and then they'll DM each other and trade with it. But that has the problem of who trades first, right? If I'm sending 1 ETH to somebody to buy a piece of art, either I have to send the ETH first or they have to send the NFT first, and then one of us can disappear. And that's a problem that we can solve with crypto, and in fact has been solved for ERC20 to ERC20 trades with AirSwap. So what we're doing with the NFT DEX on NFT.org is making an OTC channel where you can have a private trade between yourself and another person. And that's done with using an allow list. So you can, as a trader, create a trade, an order, and send that to somebody, put them on the allow list, and then you'll be able to trade with them privately. So in the alternative scenario where you're using Rarible or something like that, you'd have to post your NFT publicly, and then anyone with 1 ETH would be able to buy it. Whereas in our case, you have a private trade. You can send them a link directly to the trade, and then they'll be able to take it from there without anyone else having authorization to buy it from you. So we're facilitating the need for these OTC trades that are happening on Telegram. They're happening in different areas of chat. And we're basically creating a DEX that allows the use of that. I see a question came through on Zoom. When you are trading, does it do it off chain so there isn't the same level of gas as the ETH network? So we're actually going to be deploying our DEX on 3 primary networks, maybe 4, that are EVM based. And the 3 that I would like to start with, and we think are the easiest wins, are Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, and Phantom Network. So as you know, Phantom Network and Binance Smart Chain are EVM compatible. So it's very easy to deploy code on Ethereum and then also deploy it to Binance and and Phantom. And actually, about 12 hours ago, Andre, the creator of Yearn, he released a documentation on how to get like cross-chain trades between Binance Smart Chain and Ethereum and Phantom Network going on multichain.xyz, which is a Yearn product. So we're going to be working with that product to make sure that, oh yeah, you can pull up multichain.xyz actually, if you'd like. Thank you. So this is a Web3 app where you can transfer assets between different chains. So to answer the question about gas on the ETH network, if an NFT exists on the ETH network and you'd like it to be on a different network, these bridges that allow you to transfer, swap assets between one chain to another, these will pretty soon facilitate NFT transfers. Yeah, the site is a little bit finicky if you're not logged in, but if you go to tokens, you can actually see that the token list pops up with like a bunch of different assets you can trade. But in any case, like that's, yeah, you can trade any of these tokens from one chain to another. Actually, it looks like they added Huobi there. If you look at about halfway down with any swap, there's Ethereum, Huobi, and Phantom for any swap. So yeah, it's Huobi's ecochain is something that we're looking at as well. So this is all to say that we want to expand as many L1s as possible. And beyond EVM chains, we're looking at Flow and Cosmos, which also have really low gas fees and are supporting NFTs. I think Flow is the biggest supporter of NFTs as far as L1s go. In fact, the whole chain is based on that. So yeah, we're thinking a lot about gas. And in fact, in April, there's going to be an Ethereum upgrade, which actually increases gas costs. So if that gets through, the gas costs on Ethereum are actually going to go higher. So we're thinking about, you know, for our users that are collecting a large scale of collectibles that have a lower price point, it's going to make more sense to do it on the Huobi ecochain or on Phantom, for example, or on Binance Smart Chain. The next question from YouTube was, in DAOs I've participated in, community members can make proposals in community. However, the team decides what gets put in core for an official vote, which can be limiting. How do you balance team and community involvement? That's a good question. There's actually a proposal right now that we're probably going to decline because only one person voted, and it's not really in the ethos of voting to just have one person vote with like 1 million coins. So I think the community should come to some agreement and have some guidelines on what constitutes a valid vote, right? If one person votes yes with 10 coins or with 1 million coins and no one else votes, is that really something that a team should do? And I think this is a property of off-chain voting. So you have all these like snapshot pages, and you have these like suggestions that the team should go through. You know, being part of a lot of these decentralized communities in the past, if you go against a community vote, and there's backlash, your token value goes down. You lose confidence in the community. You're actually undermining the voting process if you go against what the community has voted for. And in the same vein, if someone like tries to sneak in a 12-hour vote, like at midnight one night, and they're the only person that votes yes, and they try to point to like, hey, like this initiative passed. Well, you have to reasonably assume that that is something that is not really like a legitimate vote. So there has to be some human element to this. And I think that's really why DAOs are powerful, because it's not just code as law. It's like, well, you have to deal with the community. You have to make sure that the community supports the decisions that are being made. And you could use the voting as a guideline. Now, once that gets into on-chain governance and people are voting to facilitate a chain with tokens, it becomes more important to set those standards that I talked about. So maybe you need like 12 different people to actually vote, to cast a vote for it to be a valid vote. Plus you have different things like, for example, Compound. The Compound creators have a veto key, and they can veto any vote that comes through, no matter how many people voted yes on it. So there are different like trade-offs to implementing those features for voting that I think DAOs are working on right now. And in my opinion, like this DAO concept is still extremely new. And in fact, one of the things that we were going to talk about is another feature, which is going to be gallery.nft.org, which is going to be basically when you find a piece of art, you can make it into an NFT and then sell the future like option on that NFT becoming sold via the creators. Like you find the creator and find like, the authenticity that they created that piece of art, and then give them like the opportunity to sell it as an NFT. They might not know about it, or they might not know that someone has already like pre-purchased it. And then the issue there is, what if they say, no, I don't want to have anything to do with this, like delete this. You need some DAO or like some governance like process to revert the transactions. And also you need a governance process in the case that they say yes, to authenticate that they're actually the creator of that NFT. So I think we're still really early in DAOs and like making sure that everything works in like a decentralized way, like decision making in a DAO. And we're kind of pioneers in that right now. It's still a young concept, but yeah, there's a lot of trade-offs there depending on how you give power to people, how much like voting has power based on tokens, what kind of veto rights others have, and I think it's just something we're exploring, and it's going to be more. It's going to be bigger in the future. I have a lot to say about DAOs, but there's like 3 more questions here that I'd like to answer. So is it possible to mint off chain and then trade via NFT protocol onto the chain, so I never have to pay gas? Yes, actually, John, you want to take this one with Block Party? I know we've been working on minting. You're closer to that than I am.
Yeah, we've been working with these flexible minting structures so that people can mint not on one of these, basically on a side chain or on a different chain, and then only when you want to do, using Ethereum as essentially like the settlement layer or the source of truth when you do want to make one of these jumps. I think that's what you're trying to get to, but at some point you will always have to pay gas when selling an NFT if you want it to, reside on Ethereum or whatever chain you're using. Now, I feel like we've looked at different like ZK rollups and ideas for how we're going to make that fee lesser, but Joseph, you probably have opinions on that as well. But for right now, our main focus has been in spreading to as many as possible and making these bridges to EVMs, and then letting users say, oh yeah, okay, I want to be using this just on the Binance Smart Chain or just on another chain. And it's kind of up to the end user and the projects that are involved to really drive that, is how I've been looking at it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a centralized platform called Block Party, and that would be, like, to answer Andrew's question, the off-chain protocol where everything is minted originally, and then the user can choose to withdraw onto Ethereum or withdraw onto Flow or withdraw onto Binance Smart Chain, whatever we implement in the future. So in that way, you're not paying any gas costs that you wouldn't want to pay. So what that means is if you want to pay the Ethereum gas fee to withdraw your NFT onto Ethereum, then you can do that. If you don't want to do that, you can just keep it on the Block Party system and resell it. Or you can withdraw it to Binance Smart Chain or some other layer 1 that we're integrated with. And I think John also touched a little bit onto layer 2. We are aggressively hiring for NFT protocol, and recently we're in talks with hiring somebody who's been working at Mutable X, which is a layer 2 for NFTs, and we're looking at integrating that into the DEX as well. So we think that the NFT protocol DEX will have these really chain specific and like crypto native features, whereas if you look at a lot of our competitors, it looks a lot like eBay or like a web shop that you would normally see. And they have one website that has like their front end, and it has like the links to the latest pieces of work, but who decides what gets put on the front page, right? Who decides which of the items are like the hottest items? Where is that information stored? And we like to think that they would be eventually decentralized in that way, but we're going to take a decentralized first approach and make sure that the DEX is as simple as possible to run on something like IPFS or run on something like Arweave, or even see a Skynet, to give it a decentralized architecture from the very beginning, because we think that that's like the super important part of this. Yeah, and I think to follow up on that question, does it work on Flow? Currently, we're looking at getting some Cadence developers onboarded so that we can port over the DEX to Flow. In fact, it shouldn't be too hard to get that running. We're just worrying about EVM chains at first because there's so many of them. And then Flow will be something that we're looking at in the future. We do, I think we have a full node running on Flow, don't we, as part of our thing? So yeah, we know them pretty well. Yeah, thanks, Andrew. I'm happy to answer the question. So yeah, I think that's all for the questions for now. Can you go back to sharing your screen? I think it got cut off. I was explaining, I believe I was explaining the DEX, so we were going through the new interface that you created. Thanks. So John's created this really beautiful interface for swapping NFTs for ERC20s or NFTs to ETH. And we think that it should look something like this, where instead of having like a super big gallery of like millions of NFTs, you have one trade for what you're doing, and it's as simple as possible, and you just get to use the DEX and get in and out, and that's it. So we like to think of this as a very specialized tool for trading NFTs, and giving as many features on top of that like concept as possible. Oh, this is a live page. Yeah, did you want to try like the live demo?
Yeah, if now's a decent time for that.
It's risky. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
totally up to you. Live demos can go, but I think you were working on. I'll let you take it because you were working on this morning.
Yeah, this is a live demo, and right now this isn't. I guess everybody that's on the call, that you just bear with me for these types of things. We have basically some of these contracts. And I'm going to be using one that we've deployed. We're actually running this on RinkV also. And so this is something that's already been deployed. And let me make sure I have my.
This looks great. Is this a replacement for the multi-page thing? Everything's on one page.
I just put them all on the same because looks it was great. Like I was having to jump around. So
yeah, this is cool.
Let me make sure that this guy, so I'm checking right now to make sure that, token ID, that my current guy owns this. And so essentially I'm going to input in, let's see. So this first address, right, is the token address, and then the ID of the token I'm going to trade. These right now don't have like token URIs and information that go along with them. They're pretty bare bones tokens I've just been using to test and develop against. So yeah, pardon that. But I'm going to trade it for token number 1, which is owned by another one of the accounts. So yeah, when I create listing, great, let's see.
So in the full running version of this, once we're totally live, you would send this URL to somebody and be like, hey, I created this listing, and it would pop up with the images. I think what John said is that we didn't set any images for this test because it was just testing the functionality. But essentially it should show you like, hey, this is being swapped for this. And then you click go and it works. So that's what we're building towards right now. And yeah, the interface should look something like that.
Yeah, and yeah, it will, I'll keep going through this. So this first pop-up is to do the approval. And then it starts, basically, it'll be pending for a while. And right, because this is going to be the approval for the DEX to be able to transfer your NFT on your behalf. Then after it's successful, we pop it up again. And now this second one is for the actual transaction listing. So when this happens, this will be to start the actual transaction. What it's doing right now is moving that token into the escrow contract, and then putting as a requirement to be able to get that out, this second one, the output, what you're expecting to receive as kind of payment for that first one. Then it gives you this link to, this would be essentially the link that you get to share to whoever you're doing the OTC deal with. You would copy it, and of course it won't be localhost, it'll be at the time what we're actually using in production. But when you come here, it comes preloaded with these, with the addresses that you're doing the swap for. And this will probably end up looking different to show a little bit more like, hey, this has already been created. But for right now, it's just like read-only inputs. And if you were the creator of it, you actually have the power to cancel it, which will essentially void the contract, and you will be able to, you'll receive your NFT back and the listing will be closed. But right now I'm going to transfer over the person that has, or the account that has this, the second address is this first guy. So there, to fulfill this listing, it's going to do the same. It's going to ask to do an approval. We're going to have to wait for that to mine. In the future, I'd really like to get it where we kind of do, they've started to do like approve alls. And I am slightly curious to hear from people if they think that that's important to do. Right now, I'm manually always checking for the approval of that token and not necessarily trying to do like an approve everything and then check to see if it's been approved. But that will save on gas fees of having to do a second transaction if at very first. There's, I mean, ideologically, you could get behind, is that really responsible to do an approve all? Some people do when doing ERC20s, you'll approve for 1 million tokens, even though you're only planning to do 10 or 20, just so that the DApp doesn't have to continually ask you for your approval to transfer things. But there's the other side of me that really likes the safety involved, or just that process of, oh, okay, I know it's always going to approve before, and it's a little bit more, I guess, like standard. Anyways, so we are going to confirm this, and this is going to fulfill the transaction. And this enables the DEX to transfer on your behalf the NFT. And so what happened is that one got put into the escrow, and then when it gets fulfilled, we approve the DEX to move this one back to the original owner, and then the DEX transfers that first one back to the other person. And just like that, you have a successfully filled trade, and we can verify it by going to the actual contract and making sure that the DEX isn't the owner anymore of any of the tokens. They should be, owner of 0 tokens, and the owners of 1 and 2 have swapped. Let's see, which is now, this guy now has 1, when before he owned the other one. And we're working a little bit, this has been an interesting page, starting to go through like the actual listings and create like somewhat of a record of what's going on. This definitely needs help right now. These aren't accurately displaying, but this will be a useful place to be able to start creating like indexes, or start creating like lists of, essentially like a transaction log of what happens on the DEX. So this is kind of what we've been up to.
Very cool. If anyone's ever used Tornado Cash, they also have that, like previous transactions that go through. Pretty cool to actually see that happening. Thank you for the demo, John. That's actually great. Worked well. And I can't wait to get those images popping up. Like if we start doing demo.
Yeah, and we could have, I mean, if we go to like something, if somebody even wants to, it does recognize other, like if I go to OpenSea or something. Where's my little?
Oh, so if you put in the contract,
If I put,
oh yeah,
yeah, if I, is there one on in the DM? Let's see if somebody has a something that's on mainnet.
I don't think so. I think you can find one though.
Okay.
While you're finding it, I'm going to answer these questions in Zoom. So on the DEX topic, could you set up a private trade where someone trades more than one NFT for one of higher value? The answer is yes. So we started very simply with one NFT to ERC20 and one NFT to one NFT, but we're looking to expand to 1155. And ERC 1155 is a standard for trading collections. So once we have collections logic involved, we can also add multiple single ERC 721s, which are just one thing. So yeah, those two upgrades will come at the same time. But yes, it is possible to do that, and it's on our feature list. And then there's another question: when doing an NFT swap, when doing the NFT swap, is there a way to check whether the asset of the NFT is decentralized? I've been worried about if they have it in an AWS URL, for etc., then they can take an image down and would have a useless NFT. Yeah, so there are two concepts that this touches on. The first is that, like, what are you actually buying when you buy an NFT, right? Are you buying the image file? Are you buying like the assurance that it's going to be online forever? And I think that this comes down to information asymmetry, which means that like the customer and the consumer has to either be guaranteed or they have to know the guarantees of the system. So for example, if the creator of the NFT guarantees that that URL will live forever, then they either have to do that work themselves to make sure that the AWS bill is paid, or they have to use a system that is paid to do that work, which, for example, would be something like Arweave or IPFS with Filecoin or CS Skynet. So the best way to check would be to actually go to the token metadata on a block explorer like Etherscan, or anywhere that you can see that metadata, like I think on OpenSea or Rarible, you might be able to find that, and check to see where it's hosted. So if you don't want to buy an NFT that has its data hosted on Amazon, then you just reject any NFTs that have their data as URIs pointing to an AWS URL. And then the second part of that question is it useful that or useless that you bought an NFT that the image doesn't resolve? Well, maybe you save the image when you bought it, and really all you want from that NFT purchase is to have the image like saved on your local computer, and then you also have the autograph of the creator sending it to you. So that's really like what a lot of people are buying NFTs for. They have that personal connection with the creator that says, well, if I get a signed copy of like let's say boxing gloves from Rocky, right? Then really I'm paying for the autograph. I'm not paying for the boxing gloves. It's probably a mass-produced pair of boxing gloves, but those pairs of boxing gloves, they were signed by Sylvester Stallone. So to me, it's valuable because it has the autograph. And you can think of the digital signature on the blockchain as the autograph that gives you the authenticity that it was produced by the creator. That is what's valuable. So yeah, is it actually useless if an AWS URL goes down? Maybe. It depends on what you're buying the NFT for. But like I said, you can check to see if it's decentralized or not based on that data URI. And there are multiple ways to find that. I believe OpenSea, even our DEX, like John was showing the listings page, you can drill into the NFT and see exactly where the data is hosted for it. But for the most part, I think people are buying that chain of authenticity that says that this NFT actually came from the creator and I have that digital autograph. So yeah, good question. There's a lot. It's a pretty deep concept. There's even the concept of authors being able to change the URI. So like if the image is popping up as like a cat image and then it changes to like a picture of a rug, then that's is that considered a scam, right? Because you actually bought the thing, but part of the code was that it could be changed. So there's a lot of different things that go into like what makes an NFT useless or what makes it into something that could be changed. It could be that the website goes down. It could be that the data itself is changeable by the creator. Anything like that could be programmed into the contract, so you have to be careful. And the only really way to know that is to either adhere to a standard and make sure that the standard is being followed, or to check it yourself. So yeah, it's a little bit of like the classic trust versus verify scenario. It's a pretty well-known trade-off. Okay, so there's another question here. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did we touch on the doing multiple trades of multiple cards? Because I guess I wanted to touch briefly on that, because we have been thinking about adding in 1155 support as definitely on the roadmap, and I think that will be really powerful to be able to have that functionality of doing like kind of batch and multiple cards. And there are some other ways to do it that immediately come to mind around like wrapping and creating these kind of there's been a little bit of work in the space around creating like baskets of NFTs, and say putting them all into something and then being able to say, okay, yeah, we're going to trade this for this, kind of like sets. But it's definitely on our mind of how we're going to do multi collectible swaps as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think the 1155 upgrade will come along with like trading multiple ERC 721s. I see another question here. Would it be possible to set up a party session where a bunch of people trade cards between each other? Would it be possible to make it like chain trades, cards as in NFTs? That's a cool idea. I hadn't thought about that. Like maybe you have a group OTC session where it's like 3 or 4 people are authorized to trade between each other, and then they can construct like, well, 2 people will trade this for the other 3 people's thing. That'd be kind of cool. Haven't thought about that, but it's definitely possible. And I think that, to simulate the real life, I think what you're getting at is like when you go to like a real life meetup, when you're trading cards and you're playing card games, you often have these groups where people are trading together. I think it would be cool to make that into a blockchain based system where you can do the same type of trade you would do in real life at like one of those events. That's a good idea. I like that.
It reminds me of like playing Monopoly, where everybody has like the different trades and you're all trying to get like your Monopoly, but you need this person to trade with this person in order for them to be happy to then be able to trade this card to you. And I could see that being a really cool, you'd essentially start giving out all these approvals of like potential trades that are worthwhile. And what would be interesting is to see like when one of them hits, it would like trigger this chain, and it would close other people's trades that then wouldn't be able to. So you could have like you could give multiple approvals to different people to be like, hey, if you can figure out how to get me this card, I would give you this one. Or if you can figure out how to give me this NFT, like anybody who can get me a Cyberpunk NFT can have access to any of these NFTs. And so you can like start doing conditional chain trades. That is a cool idea. Just wanted to touch on that.
I used to sell people insurance in Monopoly.
How did that work? What was that?
It was interesting. Just take their pass go money, and then like if they had to pay luxury tax, I'd pay it for them.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. There's another question here. You mentioned it being changed from a cat to a rug, but if it gets changed to something, let's say not safe for work, that's something you absolutely can't want to happen. So is there some sort of security? So yeah, right now, I think people don't realize this, but Ethereum standards are very loose. You really only just have to implement like the few functions that are in the interface, and that is it. So to make that into English, like an NFT is valid as long as it can be traded, pretty much. And it isn't the case that the URL for the image file has to be the same. So what you would have to do to prevent something like, not safe for work content being posted, you'd have to do one of 2 things. You either have let any NFT through to your website, but have a curation standard where people are employed to curate the front end so that those unsavory images are not displayed, or you create a new standard that mandates that those image like links are not changed, and you would only accept NFTs that can't be changed onto your DEX or onto your website. Both are possible. I think the first one's a little bit harder to do, but the second one is a little bit more limiting because you wouldn't be able to accept most of the NFTs contracts that exist today allow that change to happen. So yeah, and yeah, the magic card trade. That's exactly right. Hey, by the way, we are we had mentioned in our keynote, there is a 1,000 NFT prize for the best idea for the DEX. I think that trading card idea is winning right now. So if anyone else has a good idea that they think is something that we could do with the DEX that others don't have, please let us know. You're now in the running for 1,000 NFT protocol tokens.
Yeah, and touching on Andrew's question of, could you put the contracts in escrow so during the time limit, no one can do anything with their NFTs while they wait for individual people's for trades to go through? That is exactly how the DEX is working. So there's not necessarily a time limit, which that would be an interesting functionality to add of it going through, but really at the end of the day, I think we would want the issuer of that listing would have to withdraw anyways. Like we probably wouldn't do auto transfer for them. It would just be up to them to come back and cancel the listing, and then they would then receive their NFT back into their possession. And I'll go on this other one. It says, you mentioned something like a marketplace. Would it be possible to view someone's collection and make a trade request? This is actually, we have a collector that we've been talking with that actually really liked that functionality of being able to view somebody's and like offer trades. So yes, you can definitely offer them. It hasn't been on our immediate roadmap. As we were talking about with Joseph, we're interested in OTC, but it's definitely come up in conversations of having kind of like a user profile, and you can see different collectors and be able to like offer. You would essentially create the trade the other way around. So you would offer what you wanted or what you had to say, hey, I'll trade you this for this. And then you would probably have to contact them directly. With it being fully decentralized, there is a little bit of like how these people get contacted, right? Like how do you contact an address to tell them somebody wants to purchase something from you? Or what Joseph was talking about earlier, if somebody finds like a piece of art and say, hey, I want to do this, how do you find sometimes, you know, a creator or somebody? That brings up other interesting questions, but very worthwhile to think through.
Yeah, I think actually OpenSea has that functionality where like it tells you if someone's offering a certain amount of ETH for your item. So we probably want to take those features and, you know, add on top of them. So I think it is possible to do that. Any thoughts for governance as NFTs catch on with the inverse problem with on-chain metadata that is copywritten? Yeah, so this is something that like DC has been struggling with, right? Where their artists are creating NFTs and they're selling them for like absurd amounts, and then it's actually contractually DC Comics like intellectual property. And I'm not familiar with the Zack Snyder job, but I'm assuming you're talking about this issue where like someone who's technically the illustrator of like a comic, but doesn't own all the IP, started selling these things and, you know, proliferating this data and just making money off of it. And DC got like mad about it, right? And they released a statement and they were like, stop doing this. So I think it's good. It forces the issue. It's sort of like Bitcoin being accepted by financial institutions, right? Like, where do you draw the line when you have this new concept of who can trade what, right? And the restrictions of like what can be traded are lifted. People are going to start trading with each other, and it's up to, I guess, really just the community to decide what's right and what's not. And if contractually there's some obligation for these artists to not do these things, then it'll be litigated. And if it becomes too overwhelming of an uphill battle for, let's say, DC to fight against all their artists selling, because I actually know that Marvel does not have the same restrictions. So artists that work for Marvel can do one-off sales of like Wolverine and stuff, and it's totally cool. There's actually like a stated allowance for them to do that. And so, you know, maybe people will just start working for Marvel more than they work for DCs, and artists will stop working for DC. I think that's sort of like a problem that's solved by, I guess, the market, right? The free market. But really, it's just what do we accept as like a society to be valid or to be fair for the people that work for these big companies. And I think giving people the facility to trade and actually run into these issues head on is a good thing. So yeah, I think it is sort of a problem, right, with metadata and copyrighted data, and something that we're trying to solve with a DAO where we have like auditors and speculators working together to try to find the price for something that like is identified but hasn't been verified yet, and then you have like a certain amount of those DAO votes go to authenticators who are like appraisers and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty far in the future, but I think as these issues get kind of waded through in the meantime, we'll figure out how to get through it. If the assets were, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to add to that. One of the things that I really like about the, I guess, the crypto space is this, like, do your own research, or you have a lot of power. You hold the power as the consumer and as the user. And so even going back to some of those questions about like, oh, is the URL mutable? Can they go back and change it? It's like up to the consumer to say, I'm not going to buy that NFT because it doesn't conform to what I want it to be. And I kind of feel like the same thing with these of, hey, if that's something, like, nobody can stop somebody from minting something. Like, I could go in and take a Mona Lisa picture or try to, tokenize all of Banksy's things, or go in and like, nothing can stop somebody from doing that. It's up to the consumer to say, oh, but I'm not going to buy it because like, I don't necessarily maybe agree with the way that it was done, and to a certain extent, almost circling back to the off-chain proposals that we were talking through with like the legal stuff. It's like the technology, I kind of feel like technology is never going to be able to solve all of humans' problems. Humans are still going to always be able to use any technology for two things, right? You create a gun and a bullet, and it's going to be used by all the different sides that want to be able to use those things. And so there will continue to be legislation and continue to be problems that humans have to solve rather than the technology solving. I mean, we can build in standards and things, but that's part of, I think, the beauty of the technology platforms is it's kind of open, and then we as a society get to determine what we like to support and what we want to help push forward.
Yeah, I like that analogy. So gun can be used for a lot of things, right? You can sell it, buy some vegetables, feed your family. You can use it to rob a bank. It's up to you. So yeah, powerful tech has implications for society. I think that's the bottom line, and it's cool to be part of something building that. Follow up to the like the legal issues and the copyright. Just as a matter of our company being semi-centralized with our block party centralized marketplace, we do have access to a lot of really expert copyright lawyers and just people that have been involved in looking at like art law for a long time, for better or for worse. And they're giving us a lot of good advice on how to navigate that field in a way that like in a decentralized network could be compatible with the law. And just having that insight is really valuable. So just wanted to touch on that really quickly. And that's from our CEO, Vlad. His connections are very strong in that space. So it's pretty much, sorry, I think my internet's unstable right now, but yeah, that's an advantage that I think we have. Another question here is that if the assets were on IPFS, then there'd be no way to take them down. So I think there's a lot of misconceptions about IPFS. So I categorize the decentralized data layers into two different categories. There's the SLA category, which in tech terminology is a service level agreement. So that's like, for example, I pay Amazon $120 a year, and they get that money from me to provide a service that they guarantee for a year, right? And that's their business. So we actually have IPFS and Sia Coin doing this SLA type business on chain. And they're basically like, hey, pay us our native tokens and we'll promise to like host this data for you for X amount of years, right? Or X amount of months, or this is the amount of data you get for the amount of coins that you pay. So I think that's really cool because it's a blockchain-based SLA, which is like divergent from a contractual SLA that you would get from Amazon that lives in like the Web 2 world. I like the blockchain-based ones because they're decentralized. They have like permissionless properties. They're more connected to the marketplace because like those tokens are actually valued at what the value of the SLA is. So like if you're valuing the IPFS like network as a whole higher, then the price of Filecoin goes up. Or if you value the Skynet network like higher than IPFS, then the Skynet Coin price goes up. And then the problem with that though is there isn't really a guarantee that all of your data will be there because it requires this ongoing payment. And the question becomes like, who's paying for that, right? So you can build an NFT system where like every trade, a percentage of it goes back to like IPFS in the form of Filecoin. And using Uniswap, it can just be part of the protocol that like you pay, percentage goes into Uniswap, gets traded to Filecoin, and then like you have a smart contract that drops it right into the bucket, and it says like keep this file going, right? And then it could perpetuate itself like in the code forever. Haven't seen anyone doing that, by the way. That'd be kind of a cool idea. And then the second category outside of the SLA data storage is something like Arweave, or actually a network that I've worked on previously called Florincoin, where you pay upfront for forever file storage. And that's more of a guarantee that things will be there down the line. So I think Arweave is probably the biggest name in that space. They get conflated a little bit. And I mean, it is at a high level a data storage network that's decentralized, but they are separate in like the visions that they have and like the use cases they have. So yeah, I would take a look at Arweave if you're thinking about something like data permanence versus IPFS, which is like lively data that's like right now being accepted and being produced. And I think that probably IPFS and Arweave have a lot of overlap, and maybe they'll eventually like add the features that each other have, and maybe they'll be like one-to-one compatible down the line. But right now, that's the philosophy split. And the way that I look at this is like Flow, the Flow blockchain, which is Dapper Labs, like CryptoKitties blockchain. Every blockchain can facilitate all the features of every other blockchain, right? There's no reason that Bitcoin can't have smart contracts, but really it's up to the community behind Bitcoin. A lot of them decided we don't want smart contracts on Bitcoin. We want it just to be a dumb rock that transfers value. And you know what? That's great, because when I want a dumb rock that transfers value, I'm going to use Bitcoin. But when I want something that's specific for NFTs, then I'll go to the Flow blockchain. I mean, really, if you look at Flow versus Ethereum, they're both smart contract language blockchains that have the facility for these different types of trades. But everyone that's developing on Flow has this idea and this philosophy of like perpetuate NFTs as much as possible. That's kind of like the whole point of it. When you go to Flow, you're going to get like a wallet that facilitates NFTs better. You're going to get a community that's like thinking about NFTs and what can be done with NFTs. And you're going to get like the whole community behind ideas that make NFT trades and things on top of NFTs possible. So yeah, the difference between Arweave and IPFS there is like one of them is focusing more on providing the service that's like lively service, and the other one's more focused on a data storage and data permanence category. So that's just like how I look at that. A lot of people don't know about the options there, but a lot of it is just keeping up with like the development updates and the specific pitches that people are giving, and actually the way that the code is written. I think philosophy in code is super important. So when it comes to like Bitcoin versus Ethereum, or Arweave versus IPFS, or Flow versus Cosmos, it's really important to think about like how the community of developers and like the support that they get from the different people that are involved and what direction they're going in. Yeah, exactly. So if you value your NFTs, you have to be sure that doesn't go offline. Yeah, I think it would be kind of embarrassing to show someone your NFT and it's just like a 404 link, right? Like, hey, I spent 10 ETH on this and it's just a broken link. That would not be good. So yeah, I think that these networks have to think really hard about how to actually provide data permanence. And if Arweave becomes that standard, then yeah. And yes, you can have IPFS link. Actually, you can add multiple links, right? So then it comes down to how does the display read those links. Like, does it try 1, 2, 3, or does it know to try 1, 2, 3, or does it just go to the first one? It's an interesting problem, and yeah, you can pin an IPFS URI on Arweave. Wow, you just blew my mind. Didn't know that. Very, very cool. And yeah, I figured eventually that they'd have some overlap, right? So I haven't kept up with it too closely, but when you think about how to solve that problem, there's a lot of ways to look at this. Guy has a link to IPFS to arweave.com. That's hilarious. So there you go. So yeah, as we're talking about it, it already exists. I think that's awesome. It's good to see that they've thought of this, because it is an issue that people are having today. Cool. I'm gonna check that out actually. Give it a bookmark. Thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, I think we're coming close to the end of the session here. I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we are giving away 1,000 NFT protocol tokens as a prize. We've got some ideas coming up here, like different types of trades that you can do. We can also think about how like the DAO should be structured. And yeah, if you guys want to follow up, send me your ETH address in Discord or in the Zoom group chat. We can have like a collaboration of judges to see who gets that prize.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the talk and the presentation. Is there any, we have like 2 minutes left. Is there any more questions? That's the last call before we wrap this up.
I see one just came in. It would be cool to use the DEX as a prize pool. Like multiple parties place an NFT into a pool and a winner of a draw or an external game, like competitive match win the pool. That would be kind of cool. You know, actually Chainlink has a verifiable random number generator. So it could be like a weekly thing that we do an NFT lottery, and then people put in, like you can stake an NFT to win more NFTs. That'd be kind of cool. Something that we could use Chainlink for, just as like a decentralized sort of lottery system. It would get that could like promote a certain user's art. Let's say we have a creator that wants to promote their art, and we just be like, hey, win this lottery, you get this, you know, picture of a cat or something from this creator. Then everyone would like place their NFTs into the lottery, and we would choose randomly based on the Chainlink Oracle. That'd be kind of cool. I like that idea.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone. And yeah, please, the chat here will be erased. So if you have anything that you, well, I'm not sure if it will follow up anywhere. So if you want to keep on chatting with the NFT protocol team, please go on the Discord channel in the event Discord channel. So this is pretty much it. I think, unless there's something else you guys want to add. Otherwise, I'll thank you very much for this beautiful talk and for all the questions that you guys contributed.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, Catherine, for setting this up with ETH Global and just having us, giving us this time to talk to the community. And thank you everybody for the suggestions and the feedback. It's been really great.
Awesome. Thank you.